Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Functional Longevity Podcast, where we give you insight on how to get fit, feel younger, live better. I'm your host, Chris Borda, best-selling author and owner of Y.E.S Fitness. Let me first thank you for taking time from your busy day to listen to what I have to say. Before we get started, let me also thank our sponsor, Y.E.S Fitness. Most people lose the ability to enjoy life as they age. At Y.E.S Fitness, we help people age 40 plus get fit so they can live longer and enjoy those extra years doing the things they love to do. Some quick housekeeping here. If you'd like to get a timestamp or a transcript of today's broadcast, head on over to yesfitnessct.com. Across the top, you'll see a drop down for podcasts. Click on that. It will give you access to any one of our now 383 episodes. You can also get this broadcast wherever podcasts can be found. If you're training, eating well, and still dealing with low energy, brain fog, or stubborn blood sugar issues, that's usually not a motivation problem. It's a cellular one. As we age, mitochondrial function slows, metabolic control slips, and recovery takes longer. That's why I use supplements from Particular. Their N&M supports cellular energy reproduction. Resveratrol helps protect heart and brain health. Berberine improves blood sugar control and metabolic flexibility, all critical for healthy aging after 40. These are clean, science-backed supplements made right here in the USA, and I've personally noticed better energy, focus, and recovery. If you want your body to respond again, visit Particular. That's PARTIQLAR.com. Use the code YES15 for 15% off. Train hard, age smart. Strength is medicine. Why muscle protects your health span. If there's one truth every adult over 40 needs to understand, it's this. Muscle is not optional for healthy aging. Muscle is medicine. Strength determines whether you recover from illness, maintain independence, and continue living life on your terms, or slowly lose capacity with each passing year. This isn't about aesthetics or bodybuilding. It's about resilience, metabolism, recovery, and protect. I come from one of the core questions over and over again. I go back to it all the time. What actually keeps people strong, independent, and resilient as they age? Not what looks good on paper, not what sounds impressive in a headline, but what determines whether someone recovers from illness or never quite gets back to themselves. Recently, at the Longevity Fest in 2025, that question was front and center. Across sessions on movement, metabolism, bone health, and aging, a singular theme kept resurfacing. Sometimes explicitly, sometimes quietly, but always consistently. Muscle is medicine. Not as a slogan, as infrastructure. So today I want to talk to you through why skeletal muscle may be the single most overlooked organ system in longevity care, and why, if we get this wrong, every other intervention becomes harder, slower, and less effective. Muscle is the difference between recovery and decline. One of the most powerful ideas tonight at the Longevity Fest was this. One of the most powerful ideas to come out of Longevity Fest was this. I believe we just had a little blip in our internet. Strength determines whether patients recover from illness, preserve independence, or decline with each passing year. That's not motivational language. That's clinically reality. When someone loses muscle or never builds enough of it in the first place, everything else gets compromised. Glucose control becomes harder, fat metabolism slows, bone health deteriorates, immune response weakens, recovery from surgery, illness, or injury drags on. Muscle isn't just about something you use to move through the world. It's something your body relies on when things go wrong. And sooner or later, something always goes wrong. So we need a little shift in perspective. We desperately need this. One of the most important reframes discussed at the Longevity Fast came from a muscle centric lens on modern disease. For decades, healthcare has been anchored to one dominant question: what does this patient need to lose? Lose weight, lose fat, lose cholesterol, lose numbers on the lab report. But here's the problem: loss focused medicine ignores the very tissue that keeps people alive during stress. Muscle and obesity are not opposing forces, they are two sides of the same metabolic coin. You can't meaningfully address one while neglecting the other. The more productive question, the one that actually supports long term health span, is what can this patient build? Strength, tissue quality, metabolic capacity, physiological reserve. Because when a muscle is absent, every other strategy is operating on borrowed time. So actually, muscle is a protective tissue. So let's talk about what skeletal muscle actually does. Muscle is not passive tissue. It's not just there to make you look athletic or help you lift groceries. Skeletal muscle functions as protective tissues. Probably never thought about it like that before. It is the primary site for glucose disposal, a major driver for lipid oxidation, and the body's amino acid reserve. The last point matters more than most people realize. During illness, surgery, injury, or prolonged inactivity, your body doesn't magically create new resources. It draws from what you've already built. Muscle becomes metabolic anchor, or actually it becomes a metabolic armor. It supplies amino acids for immune function. It supports wound healing. It buffers stress when chronic or calorie intake drops. Without sufficient muscle, the body has fewer options. And when options disappear, outcomes worsen. So why muscle loss accelerates aging? Here's something we need to be brutally honest about. Muscle loss doesn't just happen because we age. In many cases, we age because we lose muscle. Sarcopenia. We have some real internet issues here today. So pardon me for that. I apologize. I don't know what's going on, but let's just move along here. Sarcopenia, the age-related loss of muscle mass and strength, creates a cascade: reduced insulin sensitivity, increased inflammation, decreased mobility, higher fall risk, and greater dependency. Once that cascade, it tends to accelerate. And that's the scary part. Most people don't notice it until they're already deep into the decline. They don't feel weaker overnight. They feel slightly less capable, then slightly less confident, then slightly more cautious. And suddenly, they're living smaller lives. So the GLP-1 era and an emerging risk. Now we're entering what many are calling the GLP-1 era, and pharmacological weight loss at the scale. So we're now thinking about taking drugs to lose weight. We knew the time would come. And while these medications can be powerful tools, and there's many benefits, it looks like, there's a crucial tissue that isn't getting nearly enough attention. Rapid weight loss without muscle protection is dangerous. Predictable high-risk groups include older adults, postmenopausal women, inactive individuals. When body mass drops quickly without resistance training and adequate protein intake, muscle loss accelerates. The consequences are not cosmetic, they are clinical. Compromised immunity, impaired wound healing, increased infection risk, and reduced recovery capacity, and finally, elevated mortality at the extremes. This is not a reason to reject new tools. It's a reason to use them responsibly. Any weight loss strategy, pharmacological or otherwise, must be paired with progressive resistance training, higher protein intake, and adequate essential amino acids. Muscle preservation is not optional. It's not negotiable. So one of the most compelling concepts discussed was something I believe we'll hear much more about in the coming years. Muscle span. Maybe the first time you've heard that term. Muscle span. If health span is how long you live, then muscle span is how long you maintain the strength and resilience that makes living well possible. It's not just about lifespan. It's about functional time. How long can you get up off the floor unassisted, carry your luggage, recover quickly from illnesses, maintain balance and confidence? Muscle span may ultimately be a more meaningful metric than how many number of years we obsess over today. Like, it's not about how many years we live, right? It's how well we live them. Because when muscle capacity disappears, independence often follows. Well, here's a core takeaway I want you to sit with. Skeletal muscle is not a secondary system. It is a primary organ system that deserves direct intervention. In patients facing aging, injury, illness, surgery, pharmacologic weight loss, muscle determines whether they recover or decline. You can't out-supplement weak muscles. You can't out-medicate fragile tissues. You can't biohack your way around strength. If the muscle isn't protected, everything else becomes fragile. Strength as infrastructure, not recreation. One of the biggest mindset shifts I try to make with clients is this. Strength training is not an exercise for aesthetics. It is infrastructure for life. We don't just talk whether someone enjoys brushing their teeth. We don't ask that, okay? We understand it's foundational. You need to be able to brush your teeth. You need to be able to stand long enough to brush your teeth. Resistance training belongs in that same category. You need to brush your teeth every day. You need to do strength training. Not because it's trendy, not because it's extreme, not because it preserves, but it does preserve, because it preserves mobility, metabolic health, bone density, confidence, and anatomy. And the final thing it does, it preserves autonomy. It's the real prize. So what does this mean for you? So what do we do with all of this? First, stop treating muscles as optional. You need to train muscles. If you're over 40, and especially if you're over 50, your training priorities must shift towards maintaining strength, preserving lean muscle tissue, improving force production. Second, we stop chasing weight loss as the expense of capacity. We can't think about weight loss without strength training, or we're going to lose capacity. The scale does not tell you whether you are resilient. Strength does. Third, we reframe success. Success is not living longer. It's not just about living longer. It's about remaining capacity. So here's the longevity lesson I want to leave you with today. Skeletal muscle is the foundation that determines whether aging is a period of resilience or restriction. Treat muscle preservation as clinical infrastructure. Build it deliberately, protect it aggressively, respect it deeply, because muscle isn't just medicine, it's the survival capacity. And in the end, survival of the strongest doesn't mean survival of the biggest or the fastest. It means survival of the most resilient. If this episode resonates with you, share it with someone who still thinks strength training is optional as they age. And if you want help building a program that protects your muscle span and or health span, reach out. We train people all over the country. That's what technology has allowed us to do. And that's exactly what we do here. At Y.E.S Fitness, we don't chase trends. We build strength that lasts. Our programs are designed for adults 40 plus who want to stay stronger, recover faster, and maintain independence for decades to come. So until next time, this is Chris Borda, Train Smart. Stay strong, live longer, live better, and I'll be back with more information on how to get fit, feel younger in just about a week. Thanks for watching.